Hello, this is Ben with Solvering LLC. This video tutorial is going to go over some of the new features in version 2.1 of the InStep application. I'm also going to show you how to do some of the more common items in case you haven't gone through the tutorials for the previous version yet. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start up the application, and as you can see here I'm running the FE license level. So these items over here are all for volumetric meshes like you would get from a finite element or an FE type mesh. Over here we have the different tools for the design level. So if you're only running the basic or even the free version, you won't get any of these, which are some of the more interesting tools, I guess, that I'm going to show you. But there are some new changes that aren't immediately visible, some bug fixes, some things on the background. So even if you're running the basic or the free license level, you'll take advantage of an upgrade. First of all, I'm just going to show you the basic geometry items here, some new features. If you go ahead and bring in a geometry like this, and this is the monkey mesh from that was generated in Blender, and just a cube and a sphere-like shape. During the import, you'll actually find that there's a whole bunch of issues here, and they're mainly related to the eye sockets. And that's just because in Blender the eyes are not attached to the rest of the head for various reasons. One thing it does find, though, if you scroll right to the bottom, is it's got an over-attached edge, something that's internally called a winged feature. And I'm going to show you what this is. I'm going to middle mouse button right here in the middle of the nose, which sets the rotation point. And you can see this little triangle that's sticking out here, which is only attached to one edge. This is problematic, so keep an eye out for those. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix up this head, I'm going to get rid of the other bodies, everything I don't want, and I'm going to show you how to do this really quickly in this application. So what's new is you can now, with multiple bodies, you can click on each body and you'll see the tree update and also the data. So I'm just interested in the head. Click on that, that selects the first item here. Then I can right click this, and I can go ahead and delete all the other bodies, or I could suppress them if I may want to use them later on. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, which leaves me just with the monkey mesh. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick degeneracy check, which also gets rid of some of these smaller problematic items, specifically winged features. And you'll see in the status box here, it says removed one wing feature, which is the one right inside the nose there. So with that done, I can now go ahead and patch up the holes using the hole patching tool, which is still pretty much the same as it was previously. There's just a few little bugs there that we were notified about by some of our users. So going to go ahead and do that, which closes up these sockets nicely. Now here's where I want to show you a quick tool or a quick new feature in this application that's also available for the basic and free level, and that's the view modes. By clicking on this, it'll take us initially to the edge and facet view, where you can actually see where all the different triangles lie, and you can see these eye sockets are just made up of a few larger triangles. One thing to point out, this is not a true edge view, so these aren't actually edges, this is just a painted on line onto the triangle. And that's kind of a quick and dirty hack that we implemented because this application is written in Windows Presentation Foundation for .NET. So there's natively no way to display edges. It would have to be all displayed through small triangles, and that's kind of a tricky thing to do, and we didn't feel like it was necessarily worth putting in that extra effort, and on top of that using up a lot of resources for larger bodies. So this is a way to display them. It's kind of quick and dirty, and if you zoom in far enough you'll see this kind of blurred edge, so that's not perfect, but I think it works well enough for what it's supposed to do. One more click will take you into a wireframe type view, that'll let you look inside a body. That can be quite helpful sometimes. And then one more click and you're back at the most efficient display mode, actually, because it's just solid triangles, no textures or anything applied. One bug we still have is if you go ahead and export this body now, it'll say that there's still issues with it. You can go ahead and click yes, which will override it, because we do know that if we do a quick check, it'll actually come up and it'll tell us there's no issues. So we do know this is okay. It's just a small internal bug we're still working with. Now, for those of you who use NX, I'll show you quickly how this body looks. Most CAD applications would probably be similar. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to bring it as a new part. The reason for doing so is if I bring it as the work part, if there's any issues at all, it'll probably fail. And some issues are sometimes acceptable. So it'll go through and it'll load in. Yeah, there's one issue here, it's a face-to-face inconsistency, and those are usually okay. So I'm going to open this file up, and you can see this is our monkey mesh again. If I do a unite operation, you can see by clicking it actually allows me to pick this body, and it only allows you to do that if these are solid bodies, so you could go ahead and modify this any way you feel like. So let me show you another new tool here. I'm going to go ahead and open this shape here. And this looks kind of creepy actually, but this is just a whole bunch of unattached edges, so let me close this out. This is a hand shape that you might obtain doing some kind of 3D scanning tool or something like that might generate this, and because it can't scan to the end, it'll leave it open. So this is obviously not a solid body, there's an entire piece missing back here, and because it's somewhat jagged, using the whole tool will probably not yield any good results. So this is where a new tool comes in, which is the inflate tool. It's right over here. If you have multiple bodies, you'll need to pick the one you want to inflate, but if there's only one, you can just leave it as is and it'll default to this body. Oops. And if you double click things too often, then it'll crash. So let's do that again. Let's open the hand. We know there's errors with this. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to inflate this, I'm going to just leave it at the constant value. You could pick this manually, just type in, select this, type in a value here, but for convenience sake, it goes through and it does a quick calculation on some of the items here, so you can use the smallest edge or you can use the closest proximity. I'd recommend you use whichever one of these is smaller, so use the smallest edge. You'll need to supply a factor of that. I would suggest you pick something below 0.5 and then click OK, and it'll go through and it'll inflate the mesh. And by the way, this kind of camouflage view here is just something within the graphic card. It's nothing to do with the data itself. If we zoom in on this and let's change display mode, we can see there's a whole bunch of new little triangles that generate on the side and also down the middle. Maybe we can rotate it to a shape where we can actually see the whole thing. But all these triangles inside are offset and then flipped triangles. So this is a very neat way of turning just a simple sheet, a scan of some kind, into a solid body that you can then work with in a CAD application. During this process, it also double checks if there's any issues whatsoever. So again, this is very important. Keep an eye out on the status window here where it says inflation complete, no issues detected. That actually does tell you that thing worked out properly. If we did this on, say, the monkey head itself in its default coarseness, it would actually detect some issues specific to where the ears are attached to the rest of the head. And that is related to the amount of crease within that. So you'd have to manually fix that. That's something that's not yet supported here. But I can go ahead and I can export that to a step file. In this case, it doesn't give me any errors because this is actually have that fixed. And again, just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import this into a new file in NX. I'm going to pick this hand open, and it'll go through and it'll load the file in. I can show you this here. And NX actually does do a lot of internal checks. It's very robust in that way. So once this is complete, again, some self-intersection items, it's filing the part, meaning it's creating a new file here. So it's a native NX file that's generated. Go ahead, we'll import this. We can zoom in on this hand, and you see it's actually a solidly offset piece. The way to do this again is just to use the Unite tool or something. Unite is only applicable to solid body, so if I can select it, that means it is a solid body and I can do any kind of manipulations to this. So this would be a nice way of bringing this in. So that kind of covers the newer items. There's obviously a lot of fixes on the background. There's also some new items here, the translate, rotate, select, etc. This is just a very, very basic way of providing the user the ability to offset bodies. So if you bring in multiple bodies, you can shift them around. And that's also there for the FE meshes, so rotate, translate, scaling of FE volume meshes. Those are really the only things that have been added new for the FE license level to the to this application for version 2.1. Now, one last thing, other than the items you see here, we've also added a new little menu item called Toolbox. And for those of you that work with SCP step files very often, this might end up being a very interesting little tool. And what it does is it allows you to convert from long to short and then short to long names. Let me just quickly explain what that means. Every step file, and I can quickly open up one of the step files which just generated here just to show you what's actually in this file. So every step file has a look to it like this. It's all text formatted. But with larger files, you'll see a lot of these lines like Cartesian point, and that's completely overkill to call out Cartesian point on every line. So what this tool does, it actually allows you to convert the long name, so Cartesian point is a long name, to a short name, which is just a four-letter abbreviation for that. Some applications can read short names. Most of them don't. NX doesn't, Libre or Geomagic doesn't. Top of my head, I can't remember if SolidWorks does or not, but most applications won't. Yet, this is a lossless way of compressing the file itself. So, if you want to save step files and convert them to a smaller format, you can use this. And this isn't just for the InStep generated SCP files, but it actually works across the entire spectrum of any kind of names that are defined within the step ISO format. So you can use this on any kind of applications you want to do. I would suggest you actually check the resultant file, so you convert it from long to short and then short to long, just to make sure nothing gets lost. But in general, if it can't resolve a name, it'll just keep its original name, so there shouldn't be any loss whatsoever. And in most cases, you can actually compress the file by about 10%, and then you can still go ahead and zip it up or whatever to make it even smaller. So this kind of concludes the newer items. If you have any questions or comments, please do post a note on either YouTube, where you're probably watching this right now, or go ahead to our forum at instep.solvering/forum. You can always find links to this on our webpage, www.solvering.com/instep.html. And if you have any bugs, do use the help menu on the help report an issue, or contact us through support@solvering.com. Thanks again, and happy conversion.